What up? Is that my lovey-dovey's? Hi. I hope everybody is good. I am. I have just come in from work. I had a pretty good night. It was pretty chill, but the rest of the restaurant, it was like chaos. One bachelor at my nephew's table, one of the people from their table ran up and grabbed my nephew, and he was like, "Hey, can you cancel our order? Our bachelor just got arrested and went to jail." This happened in our dining room. Somebody committed a crime, got arrested, and went to jail. I didn't even notice. We were too busy. Whatever. But yeah, people are having fun. They're having fun, and that equals getting arrested and going to jail. My friend next to me in her section, one of her later tables were so wasted that they were all like falling over and passing out at the table. The host said that they were crying when they came in. Yeah, so people are just having a good time on a Saturday night. I actually started the day so pissed and upset. Tennessee banned drag shows. Like, they're a felony now. But somebody was calming me down at work and letting me know that it was in less of a capacity than I thought, but still, I'm still pissed. I think that unless you are in a venue that's 18 and up, you're not allowed to perform drag, or else it's considered a felony. And I'm just like a felony for what? Lip singing and like over the top hair and makeup. Like there's nothing really explicit about drag. It's just like performing a song and dance. Like the same as like pop music. Like, in fact, just rap videos are more explicit than an actual drag show. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. It's pretty fucking ridiculous that we live in this world with these problems, with the horrors, and like the sickos and the human trafficking and all the things that are going on. And our government is using our hard-earned tax dollars and working around the clock to make sure that nobody is seen out in public with like campy hair and makeup. I can't even go into the futility of how fucking ridiculous it is. And the fact that conservative right-wing Republicans are obviously responsible for this. And they're so obsessed with protecting the Constitution, but like only when it's about them, and only when it has to do with protecting like their right to own guns. And usually anything that they can do to avoid the law, get around loopholes to continue to hoard their wealth and not contribute to like the upkeep and maintaining of the greatest country on earth. Like they're not willing to like contribute to their own country, because it doesn't matter to them, right? They can just send their kids to private school. So, but yeah, they're brothers in Christ, so they're entitled, right? And speaking of Christ, we're actually here to hang out with like the Jesus that we're getting to know, who is, in my opinion, nothing like the one that they know. In fact, I think that we're getting to know the real one, and they're, I don't know, playing around with their fantasy of their projection that holds up their agenda, which their agenda is just sold to people through being loud and aggressive and sowing seeds of fear and lack and doubt. And that's why it's so important that we're here on this channel doing the work to recognize when we are triggered by fear, lack, and doubt, that we are not reactive, that we are not so easily manipulated and controlled. Because if you look at the rest of I'm in the US, if you look at the rest of this country, I'm I'm going to say probably most of the population is fairly easily controlled through confusion, stress, manipulation, fear, lack, doubt, division, divisiveness. Everyone is so distracted that no one sees where the strings are really being pulled. People are paranoid, but they're paranoid about the wrong things. It's like, yeah, why don't you just work under the assumption that the people that you're so, like, it's like the people who are so obsessed with conspiracies can't see that they are being completely had and manipulated and like puppeted. It's so stupid. But anyway, I think that the thing that pisses me off the most, and you guys have seen me go off on this before, is that usually it's people who are doing it in the name of Christianity, which y'all know I do not like it when people hijack Christianity for their agenda and spoil Jesus for people. Because so many people in my generation can't even hear about Jesus without cringing, without trauma, without something horrible that has nothing to do with actual Jesus Christ, but everything to do with the church that they grew up in, with their parents, with their community, with the sternness that they were held under, with the agendas that they were given. They could smell that this was not right, that there was something off, right? But they didn't know. They didn't know how to separate the actual Jesus from the people who corrupted the message and used it for their own purposes, right? So yeah, that's very upsetting to me. It's also very upsetting when, people just in power, they abuse their position and completely bypass the Constitution and the amendments and the Constitution that protects our right to free speech and our right to expression and our right to freedom of expression, and actually it violates the act of separation of church and state by just imposing your opinion because you think that this is your opinion about morality, and then you want to make a law around it. When it doesn't, it's not violent, it doesn't hurt anyone, it doesn't take money from anyone. Like it literally is benign and harmless. Like, I'm every bit as angry on behalf of the LGBTQ community as I am on behalf of all of those who have fought and died to protect our actual freedom, which includes everyone. Which, yeah, I don't like it when people who I don't agree with get out there and wave their flags and do the shitty things that they do in the name of hate. But I also am over here saying they have a right to do it, and I can't stop them from saying what they want because they have free speech. I kind of like even playing field for everyone. Unless you go cross a line, unless you start inciting violence, unless you start inciting hate and destruction, then you might be actually committing a crime in that case. But I don't even know. Even then, people have to act on their own. It's really a fine line. It's a very fine line, and I know it was crossed today. That's for sure. So I'm mad about it. But yeah, I'm going to try to shake it off. But yeah, back to what I was saying, how it's so important to be able to pause and turn inward and not be reactive when someone triggers you with fear, with lack, with doubt. Not even being reactive when someone triggers you with enticing excitement and temptation. You want to have a mind of your own. You want to think for yourself. So take your time. And it's not that you can't make a move. You don't have to be paralyzed in this like an analysis paralysis or a complete repression instead of restriction. It's just pause long enough to search yourself. so that you're not just being pulled into someone's scheme. So you're not just buying now before this deal runs out. So you're not voting for things that actually don't add up. They don't hold up. And you're just so worked up and people have played on your emotions. I mean, just watch, I don't know, 7 out of 10, like, internet commercials. You have somebody talking at you compellingly, and they're telling you how they understand what you're going through, and they've done the same. And then that stupid fucking stock strings orchestra is in the background. It's like the and it's like supposed to get you all inspired and emotional. And by the end of it, you're like, I want to buy now. I want to like sign up. Like, and it's like, it's all manipulation. So just have enough wherewithal and connection to your own, what you think, how you feel. You know what? One of my teachers that I like to watch, Mary Jo, the other day, she pointed out that a lot of people get caught up in thinking their feelings. And it's like, she was like, if you're thinking your feelings, then you're not feeling your feelings. You're just thinking your feelings. That's not the same. And that's true. I started realizing that, like, as a Libra rising, that air element in me has me thinking my feelings a lot instead of just being in them, instead of just feeling them. And so that was interesting today. But yeah, think for yourself, have a mind of your own. Don't be so quick to act or to buy in to people's propaganda. Everybody has an agenda. Everyone. And you have to just operate under the assumption that everyone has an agenda. And then you don't have to stay on edge every second looking for the agenda. It's like your instincts pretty much expose it in people. But yeah, especially large organizations and groups and, you know, so just be careful. Just be mindful. I will say one more thing. People are always talking about how they don't vote because they don't think it makes a difference. It's a waste of time or whatever. This is corrupt anyway, so I'm not going to like participate in it. That's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to be disheartened and give up. You can't. You cannot turn a blind eye on them for a second. You can't just think that it's all going to just run itself and work itself out. That's how people creep in, and they, like, for instance, right now, the Supreme Court, we don't have, it is a right-winged Supreme Court. So what if this went to the Supreme Court? Who's gonna have, there's no checks and balances, right? You have to pay attention to what is going on. You have to participate in the system, right? Even if there's not a perfect choice, you can say, okay, well, if all of these bad apples are in this bucket, or let's just call them apples. All of these apples are in this bucket over here, and oranges are going over here, and there's just a couple of bananas, and whatever has the most in the bucket is like what we get, and everybody hates apples, and everybody's like, I'm okay with oranges, but I kind of want to go for a banana. But like, we all kind of definitely don't want apples, but there's a whole bunch of apples getting really involved. And now we're all splitting up, splitting hairs over oranges and bananas. And like, maybe I'll have a kiwi. It's like, nobody has a kiwi. Everybody, let's just bind together and go for the oranges. It's not perfect. We didn't set out, not everyone definitely wants an orange, but the orange is a lot closer to what you want than those apples. So can we all just agree to disagree, but to agree to work together in unity to make sure that we don't end up with apples? Okay? Keep showing up. Keep voting. It's even more effective if you vote at a local level. Local, state. Be there, show up. You don't even have to like watch the news every day. Just do a bit of research, about what's going on and stay abreast. And when you hear about things that are happening, like, do what you can. I'm upset because I didn't know what was going on today. Like I didn't know that had been a thing. And I was like, man, I should have been paying closer attention. But yeah, I mean, at least I can, go to drag shows at night, but I don't see there being drag brunch anymore. And I love drag brunch. I love drag brunch a lot. And it actually is a very special thing to me. I really like, drag is meaningful to me, and it's more than just, I don't know, just a fun time out getting drunk. Like, it just, there's something about seeing someone perform their idea of what a woman in her most empowered, confident state would be like. Uninhibited and just freaking full on, like in the power of I am woman. Like, that is pretty inspiring when you watch like really great performers really own the stage, own their looks, own the whole performance of it. It's amazing to me. I love it. And I think that it's fun and it's campy, but there's also something very powerful about it. And it shows me not to be that woman who's always apologizing for the space that she takes up in the room. Or, oh, I hope I don't look too good and like make people hate on me, or I hope I'm not too loud or too big or too outrageous, never, right? It's like, and then you watch the drag show and you're like, you know what, actually I could turn up my volume a bit. So yeah, drag show and politics spiel is over. So we'll get on with our regularly portioned segment, which is our Secret Teachings of Jesus. This is our secret sermon. If you're here, you might already know about this, that we do on Saturday nights, but I like to do these teachings out of the Gnostic Gospels, and I've started with the Nag Hammadi scriptures. I've got the Dead Sea Scrolls and some other books set aside, but right now we've been going through, we did the book of James several months ago, and we've been going through the Gospel of Philip now for a while. It's a pretty thick book, and there's a lot of portions. And so basically the Gospel of Philip are these like little individualized portions of this cryptic text that are meant to be this sort of mental yoga to sort of like chew on and ponder. And so basically, I'm not a theologian or anything. I was just really curious about these particular books. I'm a nerd about this kind of thing, and it interested me, and I didn't have a lot of time left in between work and doing all this all the time, so I just thought I'd make it a segment with us. And so one of the benefits of doing this late on Saturday nights, we usually do this after midnight, and Hebrew sages have been doing this for a very long time, is that they'll study between like the ages of midnight, or the hours of midnight and dawn, because those are the most positive hours of the day. And then there's this sort of extra protection that surrounds you at this time because of that positivity. And so the veil is also very thin around midnight in these hours of where the dark is actually disseminating and the light is beginning to grow again. So it's a very powerful time of day. And when we are in this sort of protection of these positive hours, it's like we can take in these teachings or whatever you're happening to study as far as like spiritual texts go. And it's like more in the wisdom is revealed to you. It's like you understand more comes through, and you understand it on different levels, and you can actually sort of like ground it in without having to go through like a process of earning the light. It's like we are connecting to the light right now. And usually what happens is when we learn something like this, or when we go through a lesson, or when we, receive a lot of the light of the divine, it's like, it's so powerful, it's so electrifying that we have to ground it into ourselves. And so what that looks like is we embody the lesson, and we have to go through a process of building the vessel, is the term for it. So like our vessel we're making it stronger and wider and deeper so that we can contain and sustain the light in it. And so how that translates is we embody the lesson that we learn, and so we have to walk through it and like live it out in a way. And so somebody pointed out that, I think it happened actually last week. It was either last week or the week before. We had a secret teaching of Jesus that got us talking about the fact that a lot of people would throw shade at Jesus and talk about how he was, corrupt, or he was wayward, or, he was a rebel, he was breaking all the rules, like, he was doing what he wasn't supposed to. And he was having to like rebel against people, and people were talking shit about him and saying he was demonic and evil and like running around with like shady folk and all this stuff. And so they were calling him everything but a child of God. And then the next day I was just saying that, I was making a point about this, about how, I can't remember exactly the point, but we were literally talking about it, people coming at you and throwing hate at you when, you're following like your path and living in affinity with the light. It's like you get this blowback sometimes from people. And literally the next day I opened the mailbox and I had a letter that was just that. It was like people criticizing me and judging me and projecting these feelings and thoughts onto me that were misjudgments, that were literally exactly like what we were talking about the night before, which was crazy. And somebody was like, oh my God, this is what, like, you actually, like, we just talked about this in the video. And I was just thinking like, oh, I need to bring up the fact in the video that like, that's why I give this caveat in the beginning. It's like kind of like your warning, contents may be shaken before opening. So yeah. Warning, you may live through a little chaos, but don't worry, because that happens with all spirituality and all studying. Like every single spiritual book I've ever bought, it's like the moment I like open it up and glance at the table of contents, like something's happening. Like somebody knocks at the door and they're already there to challenge me on like what I'm learning. So it's part of the process. It's not a bad sign. Okay. So today's portion is relatively simple and direct. And I know I say that and we always end up talking for 45 minutes, but I really think it is today because we're kind of circling back around some concepts that we've touched upon before. So this is great. It'll sort of solidify and embody the information we've been learning. So today's portion is called Father and Child. And so I'll read you this portion and then we'll go back and unpack it line for line. Line for line. Sometimes I catch myself having accents that don't belong to me. And I'm like, was I just from New York? Okay, father and child. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. So I read that very poorly. I'm going to read it again. Father and child. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. First, I would like to start by talking about the concept of building the vessel. So the universe, or even beyond the universe, existence, period, is broken down into two aspects: light and vessel. Also, masculine and feminine energy. The masculine is the light, feminine is the vessel. You've seen the triangle. Upright is masculine, inverted is the vessel, feminine. So there's light and vessel. Before there was vessel, before there was existence, there was only the light. And the light was just in perpetual beingness in a state of blank. It was just like all one thing. There was no thing because it was just all contained. So this light was just so condensed and like, it had just like this growing like tension. And it was crystallizing into what would become the Big Bang, right? But what that was this consciousness sitting in beingness for an eternity with a growing desire for something to share, something to experience, right? So this desire grew until it was unmanageable, right? And the desire to share, it needed something, so it separated and created vessel so that the light could pour itself into the vessel. Okay. What that looks like is this. We have our chart. The chart's back. This is the tree of life. This is the macrocosm of existence and the microcosm of the human soul. This is a map of the Godhead. All of the governing forces that make up the energy of the light of Source, the Creator, and the personality, the archetypal personality that is the consciousness, the unified consciousness of the light of the Creator, of Source. This is the blueprint of our reality. These three lines up here represent the three negative veils of existence, or the three veils of negative existence, which is non-existence, which is nothingness. So before there was light and vessel, when it was only light, we were up in this area. We didn't even have this. This is essentially the vessel, or the becoming of the vessel. This little dot down here is the actual existence that we find ourselves in. This is the material realm up here. This Keter up here, the seed level, the beginning point, it starts here. This light, this endless light up here of the Creator, and it gets condensed into such a dense singularity, a primordial point, that it bursts forth, and this light comes down through these filters, these paths. These are dimensions of being and consciousness. Okay? So the light travels down in this direction, like this, like a lightning bolt. And as the light travels, it becomes less abstract and more refined so that we can grasp it. It also becomes less powerful. When it's up here, it's so concentrated that it would blow our circuit, right? Who can look upon me and remain standing, right? It's just too much light. It'd be like being engulfed by the sun, but even more. So as it goes through these different filtration systems, I don't know how to use the term, like an electrical term, but it's like the amps are redirected, like it's a lot of energy is taken and made less. It's condensed, or it's diluted. I can't think of like the word, like when you would put voltage through like a generator, but it's to actually take more power and like make it less into like a little bits at a time. And to quantify it. Okay, so maybe you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Okay, so the process of the light coming down into existence goes in this direction. But from existence here, this is where we are, our consciousness ascends in the upward direction. So this is the building of the vessel. Our awakening of consciousness, our building of consciousness is building the vessel that can contain the light of enlightenment, the light of fulfillment, peace, joy, feeling fulfilled, right? So the light wanted to share with the vessel. So the light created the vessel, right? And lots of things are vessels. Everything in this world is a vessel, right? It's like everything goes from a masculine energy that's sharing to suddenly vessel. Suddenly vessel becomes a masculine energy that's sharing to the next vessel, right? So different things are vessels, right? We're all just, everything in this physical reality is just a little husk for the light that is contained inside of it. The light of the light of Creator is within every single thing. It's within every single cell that we have, right? So if we don't build the vessel before we receive the light, the vessel can break. And here are some examples of that. So the one that's related to this passage is if a man or a woman were to work for their whole life and they built up a business, and that business became multi-million-dollar business, right? It made them a fortune. And the kids had somewhat always kind of known that life, at least, through a big enough chunk of their life. So they're kind of used to it. And one of the kids, like the teenager, like he wants to get his inheritance early, and he just wants to use it the way he wants to. But the father or the mother, if they just gave that kid his inheritance, the 17-year-old, he'd blow it all, right? He wouldn't have the capacity to appreciate that money because he didn't earn it, first of all. He didn't go through the process of putting that investment in himself in it. He didn't put his heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this money. And this money doesn't represent anything to him. It's just what he wants to use it on. So the father or the mother can't just present this child with what they're going to give them to eventually, right? But it's like, it's yours. It'll be yours eventually. But if I give it to you now, you're just going to lose it. It's going to ruin your life. Even if you're managed to not blow all this money, you're probably going to become a dickhead because you're too young to be mature enough to build character and backbone from grit and struggle. You're going to be arrogant and pompous, like you are entitled to this money that you didn't make, right? So it's better for you to wait until you become more mature, until you've become more experienced, until you have gone to school and found your own dream and your own purpose, and you're motivated to do that and inspired, and then you have your own thing in life that lights you up, and that you have your own sense of purpose around and a sense of self-satisfaction because you went out and you created something for yourself, and you're proud of yourself, and you actually took your talents and you expressed them in the world. You get that money when you're 17, not a lot, like not a good chance that you're gonna find all of that, you know. I mean, maybe sometimes people do. I'm not saying it's every time, but a lot of the time the vessel has not been built to handle, you know, millions of dollars at 17 when you haven't done anything to earn it. So, another example might be like if you, for some reason, if you like fudged your resume and lied about it, or like you got a really big opportunity, but you're like way in over your head and you have no experience and you don't even know the problems that you're supposed to foresee coming, that you're supposed to already be troubleshooting. Like, getting in too deep without any experience, you haven't built the vessel, right? I mean, you may be able to pull it off, but it's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be horrible. So building the vessel is all kinds of things. Not only is it's building experience, it's building appreciation, it's building consciousness, right? It's soul correction. It's getting rid of our layers of negativity and revealing more of the light. But there's a process, right? It's our soul growth. It's those lessons that we take on every day and try to do something with. But yeah, so it's building the vessel. So a father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. So that means that Source, Creator, has all of these things set aside for us in our potential and our destiny, right? We're this unique soul that's come here for a purpose with things in the works, things planned for us. And those are beautiful, wonderful experiences, you know? And we also have allotted to us some work to do. We have this, all of us get this portion of negativity that comes with the world. And part of being good stewards of the garden is to transmute this darkness. It is ours. It's our assignment. It's not because we're bad people or evil. It's just that this was the portion that we were given to deal with. This is our part that we have to do. So we come in and we don't get all that belongs to us right away, because if we did, we couldn't really enjoy it. We couldn't really appreciate it, right? If I had, I don't know, met like someone who was like my high school sweetheart that I ended up like, I don't know, spending the rest of my life, I don't know if I would have been fully satisfied had it all just ended there. I've appreciated the experience, right? And all of the, you know, the ways that I've been shaped over the years through different experiences, and the way that I can appreciate people, and especially like romantic partners, who are really good and really like high value and good at relationships, because like I've seen what it's like to be with those who aren't, right? So I can appreciate. But like before, when I was younger and I was with those people that weren't good at relationship, I wasn't aware of people who were, right? I didn't have the vessel to really appreciate or to be able to see or contain. You know, I wasn't emotionally as mature to have that, you know, relationship, that soulmate level relationship. It's another thing that we have to build the vessel for, right? Is that soulmate level relationship. Before then, we have practice mates, and we have tikkun mates, where you're working out your soul correction, which is called tikkun, together. And when you have built the vessel, meaning you've attained the ability and the emotional intelligence and maturity and the compassion to have that level of a relationship that is so supportive that you can be better together than you are apart. It's after building the vessel that you can sustain that relationship. If you haven't built the vessel, then it doesn't matter. You can meet that perfect partner for you and still fuck it up. because you don't have the capacity or the consciousness or the relationship skills to weather the storms, or to not be reactive, or to even continue to choose to appreciate after the honeymoon phase is over. You have to keep building the vessel. You have to keep putting in the effort. And so the Father, the one in heaven, Father, Mother, both, who we're getting this inheritance from, sometimes holds things until the timing is right, until we're in the right season, when we have the vessel to contain, not only to contain and receive, but also to sustain that blessing, right? So we don't lose it, so we don't mess it up, and so that it's not sour grapes, so that they're ripened and picked at the right time. Let's see. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. And so, these like loop-de-loops. It's going to drive me insane. Gotta get that. So, literally speaking, when it says a father's possessions belong to his child, when the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. So up here in Keter, this is the fullness of the light of the Creator. Everything is contained in this. This is white light. This is the full spectrum. As this light goes through these different dimensions, these dimensions refract the light like colors, right? Like hues on the rainbow. So instead of being white light where all the colors are contained, this one might be purple, this one might be cobalt or indigo, green. They're different vibrations. They're different expressions of God's personality, so they're more specific, right? But they're separated when you come down. But so each of these contain the fullness of what had just come from it, right? So the fullness of the light of the Creator, meaning every aspect of divine, of God, of the God spark, is contained in everything that it touches and everything in this world. So meaning that once we get down here, once all of the light goes through these different specific expressions, they still all contain all the fullness of the light that came before them, right? Everything passes through each of these, but they all contain the wholeness, even in their own individual expressions, right? So, but we aren't awakened to the fullness of the Creator until we go through a process of maturing, of growing, of spiritual growth, of spiritual awakening, of spiritual correction. Does that make sense? Like as the child grows, it's like as we, the children, grow in our consciousness, as we correct the negativity, as we correct our heal our wounds and correct that old patterning and our old mindsets and the mindsets that were given to us by the sources of ego, right? When we correct this, we awaken to all the light of the Creator. And so as we grow, we start to realize that every single thing that is part of the Creator is within us. It's in our hearts, it's in our minds, it's in our consciousness. It's radiating through us always. And as we awaken to that, that's when we get these epiphanies and these revelations. And that's when we have that certainty where it's like, oh my God, not only is God in everything around me, but God is within me too. And the light of the divine Creator of Source is within me. And that is all my inheritance. And I can actually awaken these powers in me. But I have to overcome my demons in order to do that, right? I have to correct all that negativity and transmute it. But once I do that, once I unblock all of that light within, it can start being revealed. and revealed through me and to me. It's just that this density is it's the veil that's keeping me from being in complete conscious, awakened enlightenment, right? But we get glimpses, right? We get little epiphanies here and there. But what we need to know is that we always have the fullness of the Creator within us, right? That's what's dwelling within. That's what gives us our life force. And when the time is right, God reveals things to you. You have revelation, you have insight, you have epiphany, something that has been plaguing you. Finally, like you figured it out. I went through a year or more recently, not last year, but the year before. It was like the final year and a half of my former relationship, or at least the last one. I was in what I called a divine fog. Like, I knew that my life was about to change, but I didn't know exactly where I was headed or what shape it was going to take. But I knew that I wasn't supposed to know yet. That going through and finding certainty in the midst of uncertainty was the process for me in order to awaken me to this level of certainty that I have now. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. But that's why it can't just be given, right? Because you can't receive it. Like, there were so many times where Jesus was giving people his parables, the way he would describe things cryptically, because it's almost like the only way to grasp it is at a glance. Like, it's got to be like a seed that's planted and then you figure it out. It's like that joke that's like an on the way homer that you're like, it lands, but you don't get it. And then later you're like, oh, that was really funny. And like, you never forget that joke. It's the same. It's like people would be like, well, Jesus, what do you mean? And then he would just try to say it directly, plain as day. And they'd be like, I just don't get it. It was like, like he'd be like, if you're sick, like just be well. And they'd be like, well, we don't understand. And he'd be like, well, according to your faith, it is done unto you. Just be well. And they're like, well, we don't get it. And he's like, yeah, I know. That's why you're not well. You're not getting it. But yeah, it's like we have it all within us. But it's that moment of realization within us that activates these things. Otherwise, they just sit there like dormant. But they're there. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. I will point out too that in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, it talks about how she like overcame 7 demons. Well, it wasn't just that she was possessed with 7 demons. It's like these 7 demons are the archetypal corrections that we all have to do. And it's not until we overcome those demons that we attain the power of them in our soul. And so basically we're not entrusted with our divine power until we're actually like authentically corrected enough to be trusted with it, to not be corrupted, to not let it ruin us or ruin others. It's the only way to activate the magic, essentially. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all the possessions. So just remember that we have a great inheritance that's already ours. And it's within. And there are aspects of it that come to us that are, outer expressions. But it's already all within us and it's already there. And as soon as the moment is right, as soon as the time is right, that we can receive it in our highest good, and we can really receive it and align with it and sustain it, it's when we're going to get it. It's when we've built the vessel, when we've grown. The Father will give us our inheritance when we won't squander it and when it won't ruin us, right? When it won't prevent us from really revealing our fullest potential, right? Because sometimes it's the hunger, sometimes, more often than not. This week, we were even given this lesson. It was like, you can maybe learn from positivity and fun this week if you can. If you can let that teach you. It doesn't all have to be suffering, as long as we don't make it that tough. But yeah, so yeah, sometimes if we get something too fast, it's like it ruins the experience. It takes away from our understanding. There was a thought that came to me. It was just right there. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. Oh, what I was saying was that sometimes we don't get all of our things that we want, all of our dreams that we want yet, because if we had them, we wouldn't have the desire to keep reaching, to keep growing, to keep evolving, to keep healing. It's the desire that keeps us moving forward, right? That's why some ego is healthy, right? The ego gives us a desire to reach for something. So yeah, without that, we wouldn't want to grow. And if everything was satisfied within us all at once, we probably wouldn't continue to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. That's why people fall out of creation phase 4, right? Because it takes the desire and the constant effort of maintaining stage 3, which is giving and giving and giving, not to receive for the self alone, but for the sake of sharing. And so when you continue to put your effort in to build the vessel, to put your effort into your dreams, your goals, your relationships, right? They keep flourishing. When you don't put the effort in, and when you get lax and you rest on your morals, that's when they start to implode and get dilapidated, and everything starts sort of like going downhill, and you start to backslide. All right, you guys, I think that's it for tonight. I am running out of steam, and I think that we've pretty much covered it. Father and child. A father's possessions belong to his child. As long as the child is young, the child will not have what belongs to it. When the child grows up, the father will turn over all possessions. Sometimes you don't get that consciousness until God's confident that it won't destroy you. Sometimes you don't get that answer or the guarantee until you've passed the test before knowing what the answer is going to be. If that makes sense. So, all right, y'all. Be good, but not too good. And I will see you tomorrow or it's probably later today, right? Because you're probably watching this Sunday, or maybe. But I will see you Sunday evening for our weekly energy oracle forecast. All right, bye.